We're live. Welcome to the Joy and Show. This is Joy, and I have an amazing guest today, Buhlebezwe. How do I say your full name?
Buhlebezwe.
Buhlebezwe. I love that. Welcome, love. Welcome to the Joy and Show.
Thanks, Joy.
So excited to have you here. I love the work that you do, and I'm excited for our people, our sisters, to know more about what you do and the conversation of today, which is the difference between a calling and instinct. So let's begin in the beginning, just a brief introduction of who you are and what you're doing and what you're after.
Right. Okay, so I am an artist and I work, basically, I'm a sangoma and inyanga, but I like to call it spirit work because we all work with spirits, right? The basis of it is spiritual. So I don't necessarily like to just give it such a name which separates yet covers an entirety, which can sometimes be very, there are things, it's a very complex structure, basically. And I just like to just say it's spirit work because there's different ways in which the spirit work, and some ways which I don't think are covered by someone who you could say isangoma or something that would fit into that kind of traditional realm of ubungoma or ubunyanga.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. This is what we're digging into today, just the complexity of this work and how different it is for different people and how it looks like for different people as well. For me as a Motswana, when we say Sangoma, it's a different conversation altogether from your point of view as well. So there's always that as well, like culturally, traditionally, from different perspectives, how does it look? But yeah, we're more interested in your individual experience, and yeah, we're gonna spring it from there, right? So what has been your journey with your spirit work? How has that looked
like? It's looked three different ways. It's been very and I don't think it's stopped as of yet. I'm still learning, and I think that's the one thing everybody needs to take into cognizance, is that we never stop learning as abantwana betongo. As healers, you never stop learning. There's always something new to learn. However, my journey started like everybody else's journey when I was born. And because you're born with this, it's not just something that just appears out of nowhere. But I think it started manifesting itself more when I was around the age of 18 and 19, when I was in university. And my dreams became more vivid, and they became more real, and they became more visions, and they became more predictive. And the things that I would dream or I would see would happen. And I think that's when my grandmother and mother started taking it very seriously, because it was scary. I would see people dying, and they would die. I would just see things, and things would just happen. So I think those were the things that just made it a little bit more real for my family, even though they didn't really understand. And so I started my journey Uktwasa 11 years ago. And that was my first Uktwasa into Ubungoma. Second, I went to do Ubunyanga, Bayotwasa Ubunyanga. And then third, I went to finish my things for that had to do with prophecy and the church.
Mm.
Yeah. So when that was all over, I thought I was finished, but turns out I wasn't. Because do something that is very cultural, which means ukfukama. And in a way, what I've gotten is that I've already done it. So there's no need for me to do it, but I do need to do other things. You know, there are things in which you appease your ancestors and those things. So like I said, journeys don't end, they continue. Because yes to things. And we haven't closed those doors because those doors open other avenues where we can help other people. So once we close a whole door that opens, you know, into boundless knowledge that isn't in books, because our ancestors didn't write books about this kind of stuff. You know, they didn't record stuff like this in books. So it is just readily available. Yes, that was my journey. And then I finished studying art. After I was done with all of this, I finished my degree. And at that point in time, I think I had made a clear decision that I couldn't separate myself from making art. So my work became about spiritual journeys, especially women and religion. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. I mean, I love your journey. I love how multi-layered it is and how continuous and it keeps taking you to the next aspect, the next layer, and so on and so on. A friend of mine, a sister who just started her spiritual journey, was telling me because she just went into a second rebirth or activation, and she's like, I thought I was done. Like, I was like, what's happening? Why do I have to do it again and again? Why do I have to connect again and again and do this again and again? And um, I could understand where she was coming from, because for me as well, there was like, well, I was like, oh yeah, I'm done, finally done the process, finally. And then you find out, no, we're only beginning. There's also this and different ways that your soul work is going to unfold, and different ways that it's going to work and look like, and it might be different from what you know or what you thought it would look like, you know. And sometimes that can be scary, or that can be confusing. How was your journey with all these different three layers of like being brought into the different what would you call it? I mean, I don't know what you guys call it in your language, but you did the Uftasa the first time, and then you did another one, a different one for a different role, right? I guess. Yes. So how did you go through that process? It's like, yeah, how was it?
In the very beginning, I was very annoyed that I have to do this again for something different, you know, and then I understood that you learn different things from different people, and everybody that I was with specializes in something, and I had to learn something very specific from all those people. So it was just a waste of time, a waste of money, a waste of energy, you know. I learned things, and those things were important, and they brought me to where I am now. And they themselves are layered. And had I been bombarded with that much information at that time, which was new to me, I don't think it would have been easy to go through all these things the way that I did.
Yeah. Because also there's also just how much the physical body can hold in terms of like all this process and all these activations. For me, I have found my body sometimes being overwhelmed from from the whole process of it. So I can imagine if it was all brought at once, my body would just shut down, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. When you're faced with it all at one time, it becomes too much information for you to handle. And I've also noticed with like consultations that I have, sometimes you can't bombard someone with too much information because they don't know what to filter and what to, so it becomes too much for them. And I think that's also something that you have to let people know what's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You give them important information, what they need to know, and how to help with what you've given them, as opposed to, okay, let me give you your whole life story, because some people like doing that. And not everybody needs to listen to a whole life story, because then they're going to focus on things that are just not necessary at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then rather than
Yeah.
empowering them, you're disempowering them because they're crippled by all of those many things you just mentioned. I mean, for me, just doing a session, I recently just did a session with my healer. And after that, I need to just lie down, even if it's just like one minute, I need to lie down for a couple of hours before I feel like integrated. So I can't imagine if you just tell me my entire life story, what that will do to how I will continue my life after that. I might just be crippled and just sleep for like ever.
They're exhausting, because the thing is, if you consult with somebody, all that energy falls then to you. So this person has come with all this energy, and it basically sits here, and then it goes into your body, and somehow you have to find an outlet for it, because they leave, but you're left with it, right? But because you've been chosen to do this, there are ways in which you've been taught to let it go, or ways in which your body can handle it. But there is a point in time where you need to understand that I need to wash this all off, and I need to cleanse myself of everybody's, burdens. So you need to just let it flow.
Yeah. Speaking of being chosen, this is a conversation that we wanted to explore. What this really means to be called, and how do you know that you are being called? Or is there a difference, somewhere with the called, the chosen ones?
So I think definitely how people are called is very different. I don't think there's any two stories which can ever be the same, because no two people are ever the same. And the people who come back to call you are your ancestors, who are individuals in themselves. So there will be similarities in people's stories. There always are, so there are those markers that you look for when somebody's like, I had this dream, I had this dream, I had this happen, I had this happen. And those are telltale signs that, oh, maybe we need to now actually sivule indumba. Let's go inside, because you can see it. But also, there are some people who just assume and never make sure. And it's our responsibility as izangoma nenyanga to make sure that when you take in and initiate, it's for the right reasons. And the onus is then upon yourself and also the person who's going through it. But like, people can be very stubborn sometimes. There are people that want the calling. And there are people who don't but have it. So the onus is on you to basically tell people the truth and not making it a money-making scheme, because there's quite a lot of that. I think for a while it bothered me a lot, and it still does today, that people can't tell the difference. There are a lot of people who are being trained who don't necessarily need to be trained. Yeah, and it's very worrying because you're taking a piece of that person's life and you don't know what you're calling to that person. Can they handle all of these things that they're going to be doing? Are they really healing people? Are they the list goes on. So I often wonder, how are you doing any good by letting somebody who was not supposed to do something like this in the first place open up avenues and doors for something that they barely understand, if you barely understand? So we have to have a clear difference between what is instinct and what is a calling, you know? Yeah, because there are very different ways in which people are called, and also culturally, because this is a very culturally sensitive thing. As Motswana, I might be called in a completely different way to you. But if I get somebody who is, let's say, if I get Mosoto who's coming, I have to be able to understand that this might be a cultural thing, and I should know, because that person is coming from this part, that okay, nina nibizwa kanjani. Do you know what I mean? Or find out, or I should know that there are other ways of checking if this person should be called. If I can't see it in the culturally sensitive point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think from my point of view as a Motswana, I don't know how common it is, because right now the way that I see things, this is just my opinion. In Botswana, people are afraid of the calling, being called, working with ancestors or spirit work. So it's not a phenomenon that I am finding from our side. But I do know that there are people who wonder, right? Am I being called or am I not being called? What could possibly be happening to me? So maybe just clarifying a bit on the telltales that you've seen that might lead someone to consider being called and so on. I'm sure they've been spoken before, but just so that someone knows that, oh, that could be an instinct, not necessarily a calling.
Even if we sit down and we bring telltale signs, some signs are also could be warnings from your elders, or they could just be trying to speak to you and tell you something, and it could be reoccurring. But telltale signs are if you dream of somebody from your family who's older or younger, much younger, giving you beads, or dreaming of particular types of beads. Dreaming of particular animals, animals that have to do with your line or with, because even if we break it down, remember, edlozini, Gogo, there are izithunywa, amanono, umndiki, umndawo, umnguni, abalozi. There's a myriad of ancestors, So, and they call in different ways, because there are some people who have some of them. Then they have some people who have all of them. Yeah. And they all call in different ways. Hear differently. So abalozi, for instance, they whistle. Umzao is something that you find in the water. Isithunywa is very much a church-based, it's prophecy. So, these are things that call you in very different ways, in various ways. But telltale signs, beads, water, caves, those are pretty much, then you can start asking those questions. Then that is more than instinct sometimes. but you have to check. You have to check. And people must always trust themselves. If you feel like you don't have it, don't try and let anybody else force you into saying that you do. But you must sit down and be truly honest with yourself, because people can just say, I don't have it, because they don't want it. You have to be honest. This is the hard part, I think, and this is where the discerning comes about between instinct and the calling. Is you sit down and truly be honest with yourself. Have I been listening to everybody else? Have I gotten more than a second opinion? Have I dreamt of A, B, and C, which would warrant me going to do this? Have I been hearing voices? There's a difference between schizophrenic voices and hearing voices and knowing that that's me, but not me. Yeah, I had to learn that sometimes things are not me. I'm sure you have to. And then there are other things where if you already have this instinct type situation, there are certain gifts you might have. Like, I know that I have family members who meditate and speak to their guides. I know I have family members who basically do tarot cards. And those shouldn't be just put aside and, it's like, no, this is nothing. Those are important things to also help and but to open you up to see if, is this the right way that I'm going, or is this not what I should be doing? Yeah, because everything has a place and a time.
Your inner knowing is always the best guidance,
And most times, if you actually do have a calling, not that you will find yourself there at that place where you're supposed to go, or you will find yourself in a situation where you have to kind of say, it's it. And yeah, it is what it is, because there are people who think just because everything in their life is going wrong must be because they have a calling. No. Things go wrong for everybody at some point. And it's life. Life isn't the easiest thing to traverse. Life is difficult, and we all need to just get with the program and understand that sometimes people need to stop blaming amadlozi for everything, guys. It's not it. It's not always the ancestors. Sometimes it's just you and poor life decisions. But that's not what I want to spread to people. That's not the message. I think you need to look closely and also introspect. All these things are so weighty and they have so much depth that you can't just sit back and allow somebody who you think was Twasisa to be in the front wheel for you. You have to be the driver of your own journey. Yes, because the person who's Twasisa will not see everything for you. You have to see things for yourself too. So the minute somebody else sees all the things for you, you've got a problem. Or if they tell you all the time, we've got a problem. That is not Uthwasa. That's instinct.
Yeah. What do you think has led to this confusion? Because I do find that a lot of people are hesitant, or they don't really feel that they can trust their own intuition, their own inner guidance, their own inner knowing. They always want clarity, confirmation, and so it can get you moving from one healer to another, one teacher to another, and so on and so forth, because it's like the fear of being grounded in your own, in the guidance of your ancestors, of spirit, and so on. There seems to be a hesitation. I find it with some of the people that I work with or people that I talk to, we're just afraid of our own intuition, you know?
We are, because we haven't been taught to trust it. You know, we've been so far removed from ourselves and our own beliefs for so long that it's hard to do something that you've never had to do before. It's hard to move away from the things that are familiar and go into unfamiliar territory when somebody else doesn't know it. So you always try and find somebody who's the closest, and who will be like holding your hand through it, you know? Yeah. So I think in that respect, of course, there are people who are more well versed, but those people also need to give you time to learn.
Yeah.
But some have that patience, and then you get some people who just don't have the range. Because they were not taught properly, or they just didn't have the patience to learn properly. And that's, I think, when problems arise. Lack of information, lack of knowledge, lack of learning, or just wanting to hold on to something for so long. But now there's just this awakening. And I think there was a point in which we all knew it was going to happen, of spirits just wanting to take back what belongs to them. Yeah, I think it's also Africa's time now to reclaim itself.
Yeah.
And I think Africa is doing that with the bodies of its children.
Love that. Yeah. No, there is an agency in the spiritual landscape for us to awaken, for us to remember to step up to this calling, to our instinct, to the different various ways that we can be healing ourselves, healing Africa, and so on. And embracing it is, yeah, like you said, it's scary because it feels new, but it's already not new. It's just that we are now branching off from mainstream and how we've been doing life in the past 50, 100 years or so. I don't know how long, but I feel like it's different for South Africans, because in my country, the awakening is still very brand new. There's so much fear around ancestral healing, around ancestors. 90% or 95% were still very much into religion and interpretation of African spirituality from a religious point of view. So there is work happening that needs to be done. Someone was asking me, why is it that it feels like a lot of people are being called, or that are going through the transfer process? What is actually really happening? And I guess it ties to these conversations of, yeah, some people are called, some people not necessarily being called, but it might be an instinctual thing. But at the same time, understanding that it is time for Africa to wake up. So it's not like a random phenomenon, that a lot of people are answering the call.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are less scared.
Yeah.
You know, our parents had been oppressed for so long, but their children are no longer afraid.
What?
You know, that fear that they were brought into the world with, it's, you know, it's fear is losing against Africa's children right now, because we're no longer afraid of saying, this is what I want, this is how I want to do it, and nobody's going to tell me that they are superior than me when it comes to my own life, how I choose to live it, and decisions that affect me.
Yeah. No.
Because is something that I think is so ingrained heavily within, you know, previous generations. But Western religion particularly is crazy. It's pretty crazy. You know, you'll get people who have been asking, how are we praying to a white Jesus? How is Jesus, how was he born in this place when we know, why is he being depicted like this if he was born in this place, etc., etc. So there's many questions around that. And I think it's just been catapulted once again because people are redefining what it means to grow up in the church, how the church works for them. I mean, my grandmother goes to church every Sunday, but she still has me as a granddaughter, and she has to contend with that because I've decision. You know, I've come across times when, unfortunately, I did make my grandmother uncomfortable, and probably my mother, where they would ask me to at least take off my beads or whatnot, and I've had to say no, because I don't care what anybody thinks. This is my journey. I'm not traveling the journey with my mother. And if my mother's ashamed or my grandmother's ashamed, then they can go. I'm going to stay because I walked this path. This journey was not easy for me. And I'm not willing to compromise my ancestors and myself in that way. And I think this is what people are trying to get to now.
Yeah, because one of the things that I used to find, my background is psychology, so I used to work with mental well-being, and for me it always felt like this deep disconnection that people are feeling, and it feels like it's a phenomenon. Like everyone is talking about how depression is something that of our generation and so on and so forth. But it feels like right now the wave for a lot of us is we're really feeling this, that there is something off. There's a disconnection that happened, and our souls cannot continue with this disconnection from our source, from our ancestry, our traditions, our customs, in a way that is like, you know, holistic, in a way that it you know, it just brings it all back to wholeness. I like saying this, returning back to wholeness. So I definitely understand the need to not compromise. We cannot compromise who we are or who we think we are and the journeys that we're in. Because the moment we do, the moment we start feeling disconnected, the moment it starts manifesting into depression, into anxiety, and all these other mental illnesses that we're finding, right? So for me, I resonate with, I cannot compromise who I am. Just this morning, a friend of mine wanted to invite me to her show, and then she told me, oh no, the producer said she can't invite us Sangoma to the show. Someone should speak to her about calling herself a Sangoma. She's alienating people. Why doesn't she just call herself this? And yeah, I was very triggered by that. But I understand why she perceives it that way. But for me, at this point, even introducing myself as a Sangoma, it's a form of it's a form of activism. It's a form of being, and I know it makes people uncomfortable, but I know it makes people think and reconsider and reimagine and have these conversations with me, because this is how now a Sangoma looks like. It's not what you perceived it to be, you know.
Right. That is completely true. Yeah, people have their own perceptions of what sangomas look like and what they are, etc.
And what
we're normal people.
Yeah.
Just want to live their lives.
And live our lives, and also do this healing work, right? Because I think that in the archetype of Sangoma that currently exists, which I don't know how it looks like for you guys, but for us is from a religious point of view, which is you are praying to false gods, you're praying to dead people. So of course that's demonic, that is wrong. You will not enter heaven, or you will not be worthy of love. I don't know why there's been a separation between this work and love and healing and light, you know?
No, I completely understand. It's very strange. People like to have this belief. It's also the same here. People have this belief that izangoma don't believe in God, or don't believe, they worship dead people, etc. But those are things that are all taught in the church, interestingly enough. It is also how we got colonized, was the church. So it's all a tool, and that's how I see it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I always say that if you wanted to oppress people and continue slavery, you would go to the mind, right? Convince them otherwise, and then let them literally destroy themselves without you picking up anything. Because for me, it feels like it's like self-hate, to be afraid of ancestors, to be afraid of yourself, or to be afraid of the ways of your people. But then I understand why that is, because of this mental oppression that our people have been in for many, many years.
Exactly.
So you said you do work with women and religion, also as an artist. How does that look like? How is that coming together with also this healing work, this spirit work?
So yeah, everything that I basically do is about spirit work and women, and it's about, it's kind of complex. So it's just generally about how women, you know how the church operates in itself, and how it would generally be, women are the biggest supporters of church, right? And how I would see it with my grandmother, my mother, and when I go to church, there's a lot of women, and you get people from all walks of life. So people have money, people don't, but everybody will give. Maybe the people with less money would give more money to the church than their own families. And it was just very interesting for me to see how women are basically the cornerstone of the church. And at the same time, the church is the place which oppresses women so much. And, it oppresses their sexuality, their individuality. It just starts putting barriers in between everything. So it becomes so complex that the church will, there's things about race, gender, sexuality, history, culture, that just the church chops. And so I decided that it was important for me to look at how colonization has completely eradicated our African beliefs in favor of their own, in order to divide and conquer. And in that, also dividing and conquering the female body.
Wow.
Yeah, so it would be silly of me not to look into those type of things, because they're so intrinsic in how these structures are upheld.
Yeah. I resonate with that. It's also why I also primarily work with women. There's so much work to do, because the church is the seat of the patriarchal system, and because it has fused in that with fear, and just like created this concept of the sinful self, the sinful woman, And yeah, so it's very easy to just oppress us, and to oppress the female body and to keep us there. At the same time, we're having conversations with a friend of mine who was saying that it must be difficult for you, because right now African women also use the church as the place for them to be part of a community, to fall apart, and so especially older women in 40s, 50s, and so on. So I know how intricate the whole work is and how complex it must be, because it's also a source of
Right. Yeah. I mean, I still see it. I think there's something so beautiful about the way in which women support each other in those structures. But I think women, Black women particularly, have always supported each other. So when you call upon them, but there is something very beautiful. I'm just wondering if, it doesn't come from the Stokvels and whatnot that women would have anyway. So, because those are also support groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, but really, really important. Yeah.
It all ties in. We do need support groups. We need Stokvels, because so much oppression happening to the female body, existing in this body in many spaces, whether that's like at the home, in your relationships, in your career. There's always so much to move through, that we literally seek the support system, and sometimes you just stay within whatever support system you can find, because of that source of support, that it feels like it's better than if you were to isolate yourself, and try to do this work alone. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. But yeah, it's all complex, it's all beautiful, and it's the journey that we're all in, and I'm so excited for you and the work that you're doing. Very important, very necessary. So thank you so much for this work that you're doing and for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting. I feel blessed to share what I have to say with everybody. Yeah, hopefully people enlighten themselves and they become the drivers of their own journeys.
Yeah, so important. Yes. Wow. Thank you so much. Love and light. See you.
Thank you, Joy. Yeah. Bye.
Yeah.